Hi, I'm Andrea. Thank you so much for joining me for this 30-minute yoga practice. I do happen to be standing on a yoga mat, but if you are without one, fear not. I just want you to find a place in your house that's not too hard or slippery. So maybe you have a carpeted area that you could use, or a rug that can become your yoga mat just for today. I also have a couple of yoga blocks. Now, if you don't have yoga blocks, I've found that thick books are a great substitute. And a folded blanket is nice to have. This is actually the throw blanket from my couch, so you could do the same. Or a thick beach towel is great. I have a sleeping dog. If you've got one, that's a pretty good prop to have too. Let's start in what's called child's pose, and let me help you to modify child's pose. In theory, it is seated on your heels, hips on your heels, or hips, to your heels, and something that looks a little like this. But in reality, a lot of us, this much bend in our knees is just not going to work. So walking forward, taking agency, making this practice work for you, is what it's all about. I want you to find a shape that looks a little bit like a child's pose, or maybe quite a bit like a child's pose, so that we can stop. And then start. Maybe a block under your forehead is helpful. But let's assume our position. Turn the arrows of attention inward as opposed to distractedly outward, and tune in to our breath. I'd like you to notice every inhale and every exhale. Maybe you can carve out a little teeny pause at the top of your inhale and a little teeny pause at the bottom of your exhale, so nothing indicates being rushed. Three more moments of our stop to start. Then shift yourself onto all fours. Once you're on all fours, take your right arm up to the sky. You may want to be on your folded blanket with your knees. Swoop your right arm underneath and come to the outside of your right shoulder and the outside of the right side of your head. And then I like to come onto my left fingertips. And just a little swoopy twist while we're here. Then we'll come up onto all fours and take side two of that. So left arm up, swoop it underneath, come to the outside of your left shoulder and the left side of your head. If you want to, come onto your right fingertips. Unswoop that. Find your way onto your belly. On your belly, bring your forearms parallel to the long edges of your mat and press the tops of your feet down. So we're not toes curled under, we're actually on the toenail part of our foot. Traction your elbows towards you and feel your chest move through the gateway of your arms. Activate your legs by pressing into the tops of your feet. What we don't want is to throw this into our neck. So let your chin stay parallel to the ground. Feel that traction and a long and strong back bend as an example. So this is called Sphinx pose. You can think of smiling your collarbones long and away from one another. That can be a helpful model. Now lower down, make a pillow with your hands and rest your forehead on your hands. Bend your knees and windshield wiper your legs back and forth. Just a nice release from that first back bend. That's one option when we start to do our sun salutation A. The other one is, once again, press the tops of your feet down so that your kneecaps lift. This time you might situate your hands next to your ribs. Elbows are in, not winging out. There's no compression of shoulders into our ears. And we get that traction. of drawing our chest through the gateway of our arms. We're still not throwing it into our neck. And if this doesn't feel so great, go back to that Sphinx pose. You get to be the expert of your own body because you are, and I am simply a guide. Let's lower down from this cobra, curl your toes under, and come to all fours. Now, once you're on all fours, let's design our arms, our hands for our down dog. So shoulder distance apart, spread your hands wide as if you were reaching into some clay, and then feel that clay in between all of your fingers. So you're pressing into all of your fingers and around the whole palm of both hands. Curl your toes under, lift from your belly, push the ground away so we don't find ourselves collapsed into our shoulders, and imagine a hook in your tailbone, taking your hips up and back. I like to step my feet as wide as my mat, at least for my first down dog. Keep a bend in my knees, stay high on my tiptoes, and then as I push the ground away, as I hope you are doing with me, let's make our spine so long. So not rounded, nothing collapsed, but as if we want to push our hips as far away from our hands as we possibly can. Let's walk now forward, feet to our hands, and have our feet be hip distance and parallel to the long edges of our mat. On an inhale, your hands can go onto your ankles if that's too far down, onto your shins, or even onto your thighs. What I want, though, is we're not rounded and collapsed here either. So a hinge at our hip and an elongation of our spine, almost like we're inviting that Sphinx pose to come and find us here. Now, when we fold in, same thing. Take that length with you. And then inhale, rise, reach, arms to the sky, a V shape. Stand in your mountain, so our feet are hip distance and parallel. There's a little soft bend to our knees. Let's build this mountain from the ground up. Even distribution of weight in our feet as best we can. From the shoulder joint, we have our palms turning away from one another. There's that smile of collarbones that we found in Sphinx here. Inhale, arms out and up, thumbs to the sky, a V shape. Exhale, hinge at your hips and hands onto your thighs. Inhale, uplift your heart. Exhale, you'll fold and slide your hands either to the shins, the thighs, the ankles. Inhale, uplift your heart. Once you exhale, bend your knees and place your palms flat so that we can step back into our down dog. Your hips are high, they're far from your hands. Inhale into plank, which is shoulders over wrists like our hands and knees, and then bring your knees down on your mat a little further back than our hands and knees were. Shift a little forward, bend your elbows so they brush against your ribs, and come all the way down onto your belly. Uncurl your toes. Press into the tops of your feet in traction, either your hands or go to Sphinx with your forearms. Lower down, curl your toes under, bring yourself through all fours. And then into down dog, we lift our hips up and back. Lift your right leg back behind you and step that right foot forward. It's likely that you need to help it along. No shame in that. Let's bring our two blocks onto either side of our right foot. Maybe those are books, and then heel toe your right foot over to the right so it doesn't feel like we're trying to do this on a tightrope. Find our long spine, that Sphinx long spine, in a new situation here in our lunge. Add bend to your back knee, your left knee, come upright, thumbs to the sky, V shape, and we are in a crescent pose. Then bring your hands to your blocks, bend your knee deeply, take your blocks off to the side, step to down dog. Remember, we're finding that hook in our tailbone, lifting our hips away from our hands. Now shift it into a plank with your shoulders over your wrists and bring your knees down onto your mat, firm your belly. Elbows brush our ribs as we lower all the way down, and then we come into either cobra or Sphinx pose. Remember, not with our neck, but with our chest. Lower back down, curl your toes under, firm through your belly, and come through all fours, back into down dog, lifting our hips high, pushing through our arms and spinning our inner upper arms forward. Lift your left leg now behind you. Step that left foot through, and remember, if it needs you to help it along, no shame, no worry. We'll bring our 2 blocks so that we can fashion left foot over to the left. We're not on a tightrope. Left hip back, right hip forward. Bend your right knee. Come upright in crescent, thumbs to the sky, a V shape. Then return your hands to your blocks. Move those blocks out of your way. Step into downward facing dog. Lift your hips high. Shift it to a plank position, shoulders over our wrists, knees down, belly firm, all the way down onto our belly. Uncurl your toes, press the tops of your feet, traction your hands or your forearms for cobra or sphinx. Lower back down and curl your toes under, firm through your belly to come through all fours, and then lift your hips way up and back into your down dog. Walk your feet forward to your hands. Inhale, hands to ankles, shins or thighs as we uplift our heart, and then exhale, hinge at your hips and fold with a long spine. Inhale, rise, reach thumbs to the sky, a V, and then we'll pause and stand into our mountain. Let's organize our props. We're not going to use them for our first posture, but we will later. So take your 2 blocks or whatever you're using as your 2 blocks and place them on the back long edge of your mat to either side. Then once you have those, reach your arms wide out to the side facing the opposite long edge, step wide. From our wide stance, heels in and toes out, and then we'll bend our knees in what looks like a plie. And once we do that, take your right arm, thumb to the sky, and pat yourself on the back with your right hand. Then left thumb faces down, back of your left hand to the small of your back. Maybe those 2 arms walk towards each other, but I want us to think about our Sphinx pose and our Cobra pose, and remember how we weren't throwing it into our neck or our low back. And let this be a shoulder opening moment. Now, if it's too much in your legs, you can always straighten and then rebend your legs. Let's extend our arms out to the side, thumbs to the sky, and then stand and lower our arms and pause. Arms out to the side, thumbs to the sky. Bend your knees again. This time, let's pat ourselves on the back with our left hand. Turn our right thumb to face down, back of our right hand to the small of our back. If you want to walk those 2 towards each other a little bit, that's up to you. But we want to organize not struggling in our neck, not dumping into our low back. 3 silent moments in our shoulder stretch with some leg work. Now take your arms out to the side, thumbs to the sky, straighten your legs, and turn all toes to face the long edge of our mat, just to regroup for a second. We'll move into some postures that are now going to use our blocks that we situated. The first one, turn your right leg out so that your right foot faces that short edge of your mat, and then cheat your left heel back at a 45-degree angle. Our legs will remain straight, but we're not locked out. So I want you to press your right big toe mound into your mat, so it kind of feels like there's a little wobbly micro bend happening there. Thumbs to the sky. We're not side bending. Instead, we're going to hinge at that right hip. So that means your left hip is lifting up. Reach out with your right hand as far as you can, and then you could use your shin. I think using your block or using your book, if that's what you're using, is going to be a better plan. So right hand down and left arm up. Turn that left thumb down and bring the back of your hand to the small of your back, like we did a moment ago when we were standing in our plie, or what's called a horse stance. Remember our smiling collarbones? Let's let that be true of this left collarbone in particular, although we want that in both. So this isn't a slump. That's not what's happening here. we're rotating long right ribs, bottom ribs, towards the ceiling. And we're letting this left top shoulder drop back down behind us. And you could even weave your left arm into the hinge at your hip in this triangle with a half bind. 3 silent moments together here. Now, same idea, but take a look down at your right foot. Bend that right knee. Now, almost all of us are going to need more space, so you can scooch your right foot forward, slide your left leg back, but create a vertical line from your right knee to your right ankle, and then let's refine once again this half bind action, but in a new shape, so in what's called side angle pose. The other thing I want you to be aware of as we build from the ground up is that the outer edge of your left foot, your back foot, is solid, and the arch feels lifted and alive. We're not collapsed into that back arch. Now let's grow tall as we inhale and turn our chest, our right ribs, to the sky a little bit more as we exhale. You could also do this with your right forearm across your thigh if that starts to feel better. 3 moments here. Take a look down at your right foot. Free your left arm up to the sky. Move your block off the side of your mat, come upright into Warrior 2, and then straighten your front leg and lower your arms. That was a long visit, right? Turn all your toes to face the long edge of your mat. Regroup for a moment before we do all that on side 2. Take any breaks that you need to. Remember, you're the expert. I'm just the guide. Turn your left leg out. Let your toes face that short edge of your mat. Cheat your right heel back at a 45-degree angle. Not a side bend. Thumbs to the sky as we extend our arms. Let's get really clear on not locking that front leg, but pressing our left big toe mound. So it kind of feels wobbly. Your muscles are having to engage. We want that. Without the side bend, we hinge at our hip. That right hip lifts up. We reach as far as we can, and then we find the block. Or in some cases a shin, but I just don't want your hand on your shin to lock your front leg out. So remember that part. Right thumb down, back of the hand to the small of your back. If you want to venture it into the hinge at your hip, that's great too. Every inhale, grow long. And every exhale, think of our smiling sphinx collarbones. Invite them to this triangle party. So especially this top arm, we're not letting it cave in. We're encouraging that right shoulder to lean back. Sometimes when I say lean back, it prompts us to throw our chin. Imagine that you have a tangerine under your chin. You don't want to lose it. It's not that you're squeezing your chin into your chest. You've got that sweet tangerine, and then let your bottom ribs do the rotating to the sky. 3 silent moments in this shape. Now take a look down and begin to bend your left knee. Now remember on the first side I said, boy, we probably need more space. So make sure that you create a vertical line from your left knee to your left ankle. Once you've got that, let's come back to refining the length in our spine with an inhale out the crown of our head, and those left ribs feel just as long as the right ribs, and then rotate those left ribs to the sky. Recreate that feeling of your right shoulder falling back behind you, not crumbling in front. And 3 silent moments together in this shape. Take a look down, free your right arm up to the sky. Warrior 2 as we move our block off the side of our mat, and it's no longer underfoot. Straighten your front leg. Turn all toes to face the long edge of your mat. Heel toe, until we're hip distance, and we can move around and also move our props. Take the block that was at the far end and bring both blocks as we face the short edge of our mat just off the sides of our mat, again, not underfoot. Stand in your mountain, feet hip distance. Inhale, arms out and up, thumbs to the sky, V shape. Exhale, hinge at your hips and hands onto your thighs or shins or ankles. Inhale, uplift your heart, bend your knees deeply, step into a downward facing dog. Remember, we're pushing into our hands, lifting our hips as far away from our hands as we can. Lift your right leg as you inhale. Step it forward. If it needs help, help it along. And from here, bring yourselves blocks on either side of that right foot. Left hand stays on our left block. Right arm up to the sky. Turn that right thumb down. Weave the back of your hand to the small of your back in this posture. 2 silent moments together in our twist with smiling sphinx-like collarbones. Keep your right arm as it is. Unwind your twist and come upright. Maybe you bend your left knee, your back knee. Take your left arm up to the sky, thumb to the sky. Pat yourself on the back with your left hand. Pause a few moments and maybe even work those 2 hands towards each other, but that's not a priority. 3 silent moments where we are. Take both arms out to the side, thumbs to the sky. Bring your hands to your blocks and then move those blocks off to the side so we can get to a down dog without anything in our way. In down dog, lift your left leg back behind you. Step that left foot forward. Feel free to help it along if it wants it. Trot your blocks back into the mix and keep now right hand on your block. Left arm up to the sky, thumb to the sky. Turn that thumb down, bring the back of your hand to the small of your back. Every inhale we grow long and every exhale we are rotating to the left a little bit in our twist. 2 moments here. Now unwind, but keep that left hand where it is. Bend your back knee a little bit, come upright, right thumb to the sky, and pat yourself on the back with your right hand. We're thinking of steering our left hip back and our right hip forward. We're just trying to stay balanced. There's a lot going on. 3 moments. Then release your arms out to the side, thumbs to the sky. Take your hands onto your blocks. Move those blocks off the sides of your mat so you can find your down dog with flat hands and hips lifted high. Bring your knees onto your mat, so we're on all 4s here. Then come seated, swing your legs around. I'm moving my blocks off the side of my mat. You might do the same. With your feet hip distance, turn your fingers away from you and just for a moment, walk your hands back, maybe scoot your butt forward. Find a place where you can uplift your heart and pause. So you feel that collarbones spreading away from each other, sensibility. Just here in an easy seat for a couple of moments. Remember this feeling of the uplift that we're getting in our heart. Walk yourself forward, come to a seated, cross-legged position, maybe perched on top of your folded blanket. I'm going to do that. That just helps if your cross-legged seat is knees really high. If you sit up on something, it'll allow your knees to get a bit lower and this to actually drop into our glutes and our hips the way we want it to. Instead of crossing at your ankles, walk your feet a little bit more towards the opposite side so your ankles rest underneath your knees and then reach your arms to the sky, thumbs to the sky. I have my right shin in front first. You might think of doing that. Turn to your right. Take the back of your left hand to the outside of your right thigh and then your right hand back behind you. Every inhale, grow tall like we found when we had our hands behind us just now. And every exhale, a little twist like the crescent twist that we did. 30 seconds of silence in our seated cross-legged twist. Slow motion, unwind, waggle your feet out in front of you. Take a moment, we'll recross our legs, theoretically left shin in front. If you did the other side, don't worry about it. So other shin in front, in my case it's left shin in front, maybe that's true for you too. Remember a deeper cross, so we're not just at the ankles. Arms out to the side, thumbs to the sky, V, turn to your left. Now it's the back of your right hand to the outside of your left thigh. Your left hand is behind you, maybe even upon a block. Every inhale, grow tall. And every exhale, nudge gently, lovingly into that twist, but think of the uplift of our heart, and let's take those 30 seconds of silence together in this side of our cross-legged seated twist. Gently unwind. Place your feet hip distance like we did before. Come off of your perch if you're on it. One more time, take your hands behind you, fingers face behind you. Walk your hands a little bit. This is not trying to be a torture chamber, so be careful. You might scoot your hips a little bit forward, but find that sweet spot. I find it's a little easier to navigate with my hands instead of my hips. Uplift your heart. Pause just a couple of smiling collarbone moments. Gently, carefully walk your hands in and lower yourself onto your back. And when you do that, step your feet as wide as your mat and let your knees fall in on one another. Lie down and snuggle your shoulder blades underneath you. We've talked a lot about smiling collarbones. What's also happening is what you feel now in your back body against the ground. Your shoulder blades are in what's called retraction, moving towards each other. That helps to design our wide open collarbones. You can stay like this for our Shavasana final meditation, or straighten one leg and then the other, and let your feet flop open. Close your eyes if that's comfortable, or just soften your gaze. And let's rest and digest our practice here in our final Shavasana meditation. I encourage you to stay here in our Shavasana final meditation for as long as you'd like. If you're ready, wiggle your fingers and toes, gently collect your knees into your chest. Roll to either side, and then bring yourself up into any comfortable way to sit. That might be cross-legged, you might sit back on your perch. Let your palms go up or down on your thighs for a moment. think about those smiling collarbones. What if they came with you off your mat and into your day? I'm Andrea. Thank you so much for practicing with me today. I look forward